Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Orange Board of Education meeting. Please rise and let's say the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Roll call.
Okay, we'll do the roll call first and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Charles?
Present.
Mrs. Lamb?
Here.
Mrs. Mordecai?
Present.
Mr. Robertson?
Present.
Mr. Schwartzbaum?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notice of meeting. Please take notice that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided for in the following manner. That a written notice was sent from the Office of the Secretary of the Board at 4 p.m. on January 6, 2017. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and a Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby administration building of the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Calavano. May I have a motion for the minutes of the December 12th meeting?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call.
We could do all in favor on this one.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have a motion for the minutes of the December 21st meeting.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you. We have a motion for the January 5th meeting.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Rutsky, may you please have the superintendent report?
Sure, thank you. All right, we're going to begin with a gentleman from Verify Residence. This is something that's a continuation of actually our making sure that everybody who goes to school actually lives in town and domiciled in town. The gentleman's name who is here today is Jimmy Messis, and he is a seasoned licensed professional investigator for more than 40 years with investigative experience. He's won many awards, and he's going to present a program called Residence Verification to you, and we will talk. You have the information on it, but he's going to give you some highlights of it, and we can talk afterwards. We're going to ask you to move out into the audience so he can do a PowerPoint, and we're actually going to stay out in the audience, and then we're going to go to the district goals and strategic plan update. We have some individuals here, along with myself, to give an update, and we're done with both of those. We'll come back and give you the opportunity to ask questions to all those individuals, and then we'll have the public, if they have any questions, and then we'll continue on with the agenda. So if I can ask you to go into the audience, please, so we can begin.
That's fine.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Jimmy Messis. I'm a licensed professional investigator. I'm a board-accredited investigator, only one of 20 in the United States. I've been doing this for 36 years. About 10 years ago, I had Chicago call me up and ask me if I could help them with their out-of-district program. Came up with an idea, and I came up with a program that I developed and designed using fraud technology. I'm a computer programmer plus an investigator. I combined the two, and I was able to come up with a program that we utilize that accesses several hundred, in fact, it's almost 1,000 different databases and sources of individuals to tell us where they actually live. Every school district in New Jersey and around the country is having a problem with unauthorized out-of-district kids. Yours is no different than anybody else's. And what we make sure that we do is try to help you show where the child is domiciled. Domiciled is where does the child put their head to bed at night. From our experience in the last 6 years doing this full time, we find that the average percentage of out-of-district students is 1 to 4%. So if you multiply your numbers based on your school district, we estimate that you're going to average somewhere between 140 and 280 unauthorized children. My understanding is, I think last year you had somewhere around the 100, 140, which is on the low end. Those are probably tips that you got from somebody. We are the source that now gives you the tips. We tell you which are the students that are living out of district and where they actually are living. There are based on your numbers, you can expect that there's probably 3 to 7 special needs students in your district that are living out of the district. You can also anticipate that they're costing you somewhere between $40,000 and $120,000, and you should have about those counts. I can tell you from experience, I have yet to do one school district where we have not found one special needs child that did not live in the district, not one. Now, when children get registered, the parents come in and they'll bring in the driver's license, passport, mortgage deeds, leases. You see the asterisk next to a lot of these things? Those can all be fabricated with Photoshop. So people now with their computer, they use Photoshop and they'll fake utilities, they'll fake all of these different things. The only thing that they can't fake is the driver's license and a passport for the most part. Now, who commits residence fraud? Well, first let me tell you that everybody commits residence fraud. It's everybody. There is no socioeconomic demographics with regards to this. And those that are near affluent communities, or if you have a great school and you're surrounded by towns that don't have a good school, you are a target. Parents working in the district, we have found statistically that we're finding that it's parents want to have their kid go to school in the district that they work in, so if little Johnny gets sick, they can just pick him up right from the school and then go home instead of having to drive an hour to get there. We also find that if you have a better school district, you're a target. Sports program, I don't know if you're aware of the recent incident in Wayne. We were involved with that. And again, some school districts, what the parents do is they wanted their children to be the star sports player of a particular sport, and they wouldn't be the star in the town that they actually live in, so they would commit residence fraud to get the attention, hoping that they're going to get a scholarship to go to college. Some schools have a better needs program. I can tell you we had an incident in South Jersey where the family that we caught committing residence fraud lived directly across the street from a school. I mean, if you walked off their property, you were on school property. And yet, not only did they live across the street from the school, they lived in Philadelphia and were driving across the river and bringing their child to a school in New Jersey because they had a better special ed program. And last but not least, especially with high school kids, they just say to their parents, I'm not leaving. I'm staying with my friends. I'm going to graduate. And the parents have a hard time controlling their children. So the current identifiers for fraud, you have your re-registration where the parents come in and bring you all this ID. Well, that's old school. That's old way of doing it. Because again, some of these items can be fabricated. You'll know that some parents fail to provide documents and that automatically sets up the red flag. Sometimes a school district will mail a letter to the parent at an address and it comes back. That's a little red flag that they're not living there. And you'll get tips from the students or the teachers or the bus driver or other parents. Tips or a reward hotline. We run a rewards hotline, and we actually do it for free. And we get calls and tips every single day from around the country, people ratting on other people that have their kids in a school. Most of the time, family members, divorce, what have you, and their family members are ratting on the kids. And last but not least, the most effective way to identify out-of-district students is now using what we provide and what we call the Student Residence Database Audit. Now, most school districts have a residency officer. And the residency officer, as you have in your town, will get a tip, and then they'll follow up on the tip, and they'll determine whether the child lives in town or not. Sometimes they'll do surveillance or what have you. We are now the service that provides your residency officers with the tip. Not only do we tell your residency officers that these are the children you should be watching, we also tell them where they're actually living so that they can confirm it. So how do we do this? Well, about 10 years ago, banks, financial institutions created a network to identify fraud. You know how you go to a bank or you go to any of these retail establishments to get a credit card right away? Well, they needed a way to be able to verify that the person standing there was in fact that person and that they lived where they lived. So the databases were originally created for credit card fraud. I was able to take my access as a licensed detective and be able to program software that would allow me to connect to every single credit bureau, banks, financial institutions, car lending institutions, Pizza Hut, Sears. I mean, there's 900 reporting agencies. And guess what these people all do? They all sell data. They all sell data to major data providers. And we have access to them. And all we have access to is the name, the address, and that's it. We also have access to the Post Office National Change of Address database. This gets updated daily. The moment you have a family in your district and they go to the post office to change their address because they're moving, we're going to know about it. Not only do we know about it, we know the exact day that they did it, and we'll know whether it was a family change of address or was it just one individual. Now, sometimes the individual change of address is because daddy and mommy just got divorced or they're fighting and dad's now going to get his mail someplace else, but mom and the child might stay in the district. The way that we do this, we take all the data, you provide us with the student, parent, first name, last name, and address. That's all we need. First name, last name, and address. We run it through the database, and we're going to come back with 3 designations. It's either going to be match, or no record. And this is in an Excel file. Match means that the address that you gave us matches the address in all the 3 different major databases that we check. So that match means they're okay. No match means that we have a different address that appears to be more current than the one that you gave us. It could also mean that the exact name you provided to us is a little different, so it might come back as a no match. You might have also given us an address and they actually moved within the district, but it would still be a no match. So they moved from one apartment to another one in the same building or within the same district, but they're still in the district. The address you gave us was misspelled, or there was something wrong with it. And you might have given us a name as Bill Johnson instead of William Johnson, and the computer was going to come back and kick it out as a no match. Also, a no match does not mean that the child does not live in the district. It just means that, hey, the database is saying there's something wrong with this file, you should look at it. And that's what your residency officers would do. Also, on a no match, we're normally going to give you the new address. And in addition to the new address, we're going to tell you when we first saw that address, the date. So let's say we saw that first address a year ago. You'll know the actual month and year where we saw the new address. Now, no record is bad. No record means that none of the databases, the 3 major databases which comprise almost 1,000 reporting agencies, not one of them ever had that name associated with that address. More than likely, fraud. They just made up an address. Now, justifying the cost. Our charge to your school, based on the number of students you have, 7,000 is $1.50 a name. So for $1.50, we run the name through the database, we're going to give you a new address, and we're going to tell you when we saw that new address. Based on our statistics that we found for your district, you're paying somewhere around $20,000 per student. If you look back here, we're going to charge you around $10,000 to do the whole audit. In addition to that, your special eds program, you have about 1,300 special ed children. You're going to have somewhere between 3 and 7, and that's on the low end. Usually it could be higher depending on certain circumstances. As far as what we do, we're the only company in the entire country doing this. I'm located out of Freehold, New Jersey. I've been featured on all these different TV shows, newspapers, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. I actually started out as an investigator for the White House in the Reagan administration, and I specialize in finding people and finding fraud. So now I bring that talent to you guys so that you can now take advantage of it, and for $1.50, you'll know where a child technically is residing. Any questions?
Jimmy, let me just give a little background to the audience. when we did our re-registration last year, this is kind of a follow-up. There was discussion down at New Jersey School Board Association conference, as well as some districts that I knew the superintendents who were using Jimmy's program, and they all raved about it. And the simple piece that was identified is not every district has residency officers, and when the document comes back, it clearly starts at the top and works its way down about here's no match, no record, and that's what they started with within the district. So it's important to realize the easiness to this program and helping our residency officers. And as I said before, it's really based on some communication between the teacher, overhearing kids, overhearing parents, parents saying something else, and that's not the most prudent way to do it these days. So that's how we got involved with Jimmy. He came in and did a presentation to all the residency officers, myself and John Calavano, and we really liked what we saw. So Jimmy, if you don't mind sticking around for a few minutes, sure. What we're going to do is have one more presentation, and then the board's going to come back up, and then we'll have the board ask you any questions, and then we'll open up to the public to ask you any questions, and then we can get you on the road.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you. Okay, I'll stay here where I am for a minute. The next item for discussion is the update on the goals, the district goals, and the strategic plan. So I'm going to begin and give just a brief update on our special education goal, and then we're going to invite Ms. Butler up to the microphone, and she's going to give an overview on the guidance goal, which is also part of the strategic plan. And then we're going to invite Ms. Veneziano and Ms. DiMartinos to come up and talk a little bit about what's been going on in the district as far as the reading, which is a major component of the strategic plan. So as far as the special education goal, we are finalizing this week our recommendation to have a company do what's called a comprehensive audit report. And that audit report will encompass the individuals who come into the district to evaluate in-district and out-of-district programs. They will look at the sequencing of our programs. They will look at the effectiveness of the programs. They will sit and talk to all the special education teachers, and they will also sit and talk with the child study team members. They will have a forum for parents to be able to come to 2 different evenings and share their thoughts on programs, as well as we will be doing surveys for all of those groups. And trying to look at the curriculum piece of it. How are we doing with our curriculum as far as the special education groups, and how does it work as far as the alignment of general education? So there's a lot to this comprehensive audit that's going to take place. And we have interviewed 4 groups. We have 1 more to interview this week, and then I'll be bringing to the next board meeting a recommendation for one of those individuals. The timeline will be somewhere between 2 and 3 months with all the components that need to be done. And there's a lot of it that needs to be done, but they'll be reviewing IEPs. We'll be doing a random sampling of about 10 to 15% of all of the IEPs, looking to make sure that we are maintaining what we're supposed to be maintaining and being compliant with the special education laws. Once that is done, then we'll be sitting down and looking at all of the findings from what we're doing well as a district and where we can improve as far as the special education program. And then we'll be creating recommendations through the idea of an action plan and determining what we can do immediately and what we need to work on over the next 2 to 3 years. That presentation from whoever we are recommending will be at the beginning of the next board meeting. So that individual will come up and do the presentation on the scope of work. And when the when the work is done with the audit, he or she will be coming back to present the findings. Again, that'll be a board meeting in either May or June based on how quickly they get the audit done. So that's kind of an overview where we are with the special ed. It's going to be comprehensive, and it's going to be where we have a lot of different voices heard and a lot of different input. and then we put those findings together for recommendations. The next piece of the update will be from Ms. Butler on the guidance department. So let me invite Ms. Butler up to do a little bit of a presentation. She's going to have a PowerPoint for you as well, and some of the good work that she's been doing so far this year.
Good evening. I'm just going to provide you with an update as to what we as a department are doing to evaluate the school counseling program. Initially, when we started the process, we've realized that there was no formal data to support the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the school counseling program. So I felt that it was important that we begin to develop that data. In developing that data, the first thing that we did was to establish advisory councils. We have a district-level advisory council, which consists of the the superintendent, building principals, school counselors at various levels, supervisors, and parents. The advisory council meets. I developed a schedule where they meet about 5 times throughout the year, and they take a look at the work that the grade level, I can say, advisory councils have done or have investigated, the data that they have brought together. We have an elementary advisory council which consists of building administrators at the elementary level, middle school level, the school counselors, and parents and students. At the middle school level, we have the high school building administrator, the middle school building administrator, middle school counselors, parents, and students. And at the high school, we have the high school counselors and the high school building administrator that sits in on that council. Dates and goals for each one of the meetings have been established for the advisory councils, and the grade level advisory councils reports the data or the information that they receive through various investigations that I will go over to the district council to determine our next steps. Because we did not have formal data to support the effectiveness of the school counseling program, I had to begin a process to develop that data. The first part of it was to analyze the time, do a time and task analysis of the school counselors to determine their use of time. What is it that they do on a daily basis? I've had the counselors and myself do a little research, conduct some research on school counseling programs and their effectiveness, and we have found that school counselors have a school counselor to student ratio of 1 to 250, and that counselors should spend 80% of their times with direct and indirect services. The second step, and after that research was conducted, the second step was define what was direct services versus indirect services in our district. So we made a list of what direct services look like and indirect services look like, so that when we're completing the time and task analysis, there was consistency with what was being reported out. The time and task analysis is completed by each one of the counselors. Every week, they submit a report to me, and then I generate a report each week that looks something like this. This is a comparison of all the grade levels, and it indicates the direct service, which is the ISP is individualized student planning. The other one is direct support. The SCC is school counseling curriculum. The direct responsive is responding to students' needs that that are brought to them, indirect services, and non-counseling services. So this chart here indicates how the counselors have spent their times, what they have spent their times doing through the months of November and January when we started this process. Most of our counselors do spend most of their time with the direct and indirect services to our students. I have prepared for you information that outlines what is direct services and what is indirect services, so you understand that as well. This chart, not only do I break it out into comparing the different levels, I also take a look at individual counselors as well as schools, what's going on in one school versus another school. And during our meetings that I have with the advisory councils at each one of the levels, we take a look at that data and see what we could do differently or what we need to do differently. The next part of the evaluation process is taking a look at the programs that are offered in each one of the buildings. We have taken a look at what each building programs that each one of the buildings are offering, what works in essence, what doesn't work, what do we need to do differently to address the needs of all our students and not just a smaller population of the students. With the program audit that we do, or the program review that we're doing, it's a program that has been used by the American School Counselors Association, and we're using that same audit process. We have found that initially when we started, a mission, vision, and belief statement was not in place for the school counseling program. So we have drafted the mission, vision, and belief statement for the school counseling program to be presented to the district level advisory committee tomorrow, and they'll have a chance to review it and make any necessary adjustments. The other thing that we have started the process of doing is developing a monthly reference calendar. This calendar will provide all individuals with information as it relates to what's happening in each building with the school counseling program throughout the entire school year. It's a work in progress. We have begun that work, and we will continue to work on that to complete by the end of the year. As I stated before, we are looking at identifying different programs within each one of the building and taking a look at what works, what doesn't work, and what do we need to do differently. Another tool that we're using to evaluate the school counseling program are surveys. We have developed surveys for the parents to complete, the teachers to complete, school administrators and students and the school counselors. I'm working collaboratively with the technology team to determine when and how we will distribute those surveys to all the necessary parties. The surveys are complete. Tomorrow during our advisory, district advisory council, they will have an opportunity to take a look at those surveys to see if we all agree on the surveys that we will be distributing to all the parties that, all the necessary parties. With all this information, the time and task analysis, with the program analysis, the surveys from the responses from the surveys that we receive, we're going to then take a look at the strengths and the needs of the school counseling programs. Once those strengths and needs are determined, we will develop a plan of action to determine what we need to address immediately and what we will address over the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. And again, you stick around for a little bit. We'll have the board come up and ask questions and then open up to the public. I'd like to invite Ms. Veneziano and Ms. DeMartinez up to the podium, where they're going to provide an overview on where we are with the English Language Arts program.
Okay,
Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Veneziano. I am the ELA supervisor for grades 6 through 12, and this is Denise D. Martinez, and she is the ELA supervisor for K through 5. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the strategic plan that the board and all of us have been working towards, and basically 4 goals of the strategic plan are really guiding our district forward. So goal 2 centers around readiness for future success, and basically it involves setting specific goals across the content areas to really increase student achievement. So really all students are being challenged and engaged in quality instruction, and essentially we are preparing them for future success. So in regards to ELA, we are really working on making reading and writing a priority, making sure that our students are reading at or above grade level, that we are providing them appropriate and rigorous tasks in the classroom, providing interventions when needed, and also really targeting each student at each of their levels with small group instruction. So really to do that, a few of the things that we have done that we're going to update you on this evening are our revision of the benchmarks for this year. ELA has, we have benchmarks provided to the students 3 times a year. So we'll talk about how we've revised them this year. We're also going to talk about how we're examining just our overall assessment system, specifically to ELA, and how that can carry over into other content areas, and also how we have established instructional rounds in the elementary school.
Good evening. Sorry. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this year we have made some revisions, as Liz mentioned, to our district benchmarks. Liz and I considered the feedback from the teachers, for they're the ones implementing and using the benchmark data to inform their instruction. With that said, in the grades 4 to 5, the assessment consists of a 1 grade level informational text, students in grades 6 to 8 reading a literary and informational text. All benchmarks are closely aligned to the critical focus standards in reading, writing, and language. This year we have included adding multiple choice reading comprehension questions that are evidence-based. All students are required to write a short, constructed response that included scaffolded writing prompts for differentiated levels. A graphic organizer is provided for all students. The ESL and special ed supervisors worked closely with Liz and I to develop accommodations to support the needs of specialized groups. For example, providing a vocabulary key, possible extended time, visual aids, etc. All the benchmarks are scored based on a common rubric. The purpose, the revisions, and the guidelines for administration were all clearly communicated to the principals and teachers prior to the testing window through a district memo and through meetings.
So as Denise said, we started out, we revised the benchmarks based on feedback from the teachers, and that is something that we take to heart. Teachers are in the classrooms with the students every day. They are at the heart of the teaching and the learning, and so their feedback is very important to us as to what works and what does not work. So therefore, we we said, you know, the feedback from the teachers is that we have these benchmarks, there's been change every single year. Our benchmarks have been changing, maybe the process, maybe the assessment itself, and we really want to build consistency and build capacity. So we decided, along with the support and help of Ebony Demendez, our assistant superintendent, to establish an assessment literacy committee. And so we really started that work on our November PD Day. Denise and I worked with the ELA teachers K through 12 in different workshops, and we really talked about assessment. What does assessment look like in our classroom? What are the types of questions that we ask students? And making sure that they are aligned to the standards. And we looked at a lot of examples of standard aligned questions, and also making sure that we ask these types of questions to our students. We also looked at a lot of data. We looked at park data, but we also, more importantly, looked at our own district data, our benchmark data across the years, and specifically from the most recent benchmark administration. And so on that day, we sparked some interest, and many teachers came to us and said, I'm interested in this assessment literacy committee. So therefore, we established a committee. It is currently 26 teachers, general ed, special ed, ESL, elementary, and middle school. We started small. We just started with ELA, and the committee is now expanding. We've also added 9 directors and supervisors because we are starting to look at assessment frameworks, not just for ELA, but for other content areas. And so our first meeting in December, the Assessment Literacy Committee, we first developed our purpose, and what we wanted to stress with them is that it's a partnership. It's not a top-down. It is that we need to build consistency and capacity, and now you are the voice, and you're going to help us establish a district assessment framework that works and can be consistent over the course of the next few years. So therefore, at the December meeting, we really examined our current practices over the course of the year, what works, what didn't work, what was helpful. We defined assessment for West Orange, and the assessment committee came up with that we really want assessments to measure student progress, and that should be driving our work. And also that specifically the needs for benchmarks is for the teachers. The benchmarks are the keys to driving instruction and driving those students forward in their performance. And so we have our next meeting coming up this week, and at the end of that meeting, after we kind of developed our purpose, definition, and need, we said, okay, now we have been working with our district-made assessments over the course of the years, changing them and tweaking them as we've gotten feedback. We can also explore purchased assessments as well. And so the committee of teachers said, well, before we can make a decision on what's going to work best for our district, whether to move forward and keep going with district-made or looking at, or purchasing one, we really need to explore both. So at our upcoming meeting this week, we'll explore some purchased assessment systems, and then we'll look at them in comparison to district-made, and we'll move our work forward. And generally, by the end of this year, the committee will come to an agreement and a decision of where, and really establishing a district assessment framework that will establish and that we will have procedures and processes that we can continue for the years to come.
Okay, so reading, as we mentioned, reading is our priority. It's our focus. So based on the November PD District Day, a heavy request from the teachers was to provide opportunities to observe real teachers with real students and to observe them implementing the structures of the Reader's Workshop model. So in moving forward with that feedback, instructional rounds are currently being arranged for the 7 elementary schools. The first session began of the instructional rounds with reading specialists observing K-1 teachers at Mount Pleasant. Then we moved forward with the Hazel teachers and Washington teachers and administrators. The goal of the instructional rounds are to observe best practices around the instructional core, gain consistency amongst the district, develop a shared understanding of a pure Reader's Workshop model, acquire common language, and build a culture of collaboration. Julie DiGiacomo, principal of Mount Pleasant, reading specialist Shari Ritter, and the K-1 staff have been extremely flexible and accommodating with their schedules and reflective in making the PD rich and meaningful. The PD has certainly become a learning experience for all, and most importantly, it is authentic and relevant. On a separate note, being that reading is our priority and our focus, I would like to take the brief opportunity to personally thank Mr. Rutsky and the board for the adoption of Foundations. Foundations is really helping our students learn to read and apply those strategies taught in a shared reading, independent reading, and in writing. So again, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Mr. Mendez, would you like to add anything to either piece? Please, if you want to go up to that podium so they can. Thank you.
Good evening. Just for the update purpose, these are goals that are being covered throughout Goal 2. So Goal 2 is readiness for success. One of them deals with specific measures of success as far as what the students will produce on benchmarks. The subsequent areas under Goal 2 are building an assessment framework, looking at reading, aligning everything from curriculum to assessment to professional development, and taking teacher feedback through the rounds process and allowing them to see what we are expecting in the reading classroom. So it's covering all of the objectives in Goal 2, and so then this is what we're updating. With regard to the assessment framework and looking at the assessment committee, I think it's critical to note that we are also addressing a topic that came up at a previous board meeting, and that was with the idea of how many assessments are on the teachers' plates. And so then we're examining, that committee is really looking at how many assessments are on the plate, which ones are ready to come off, which ones should stay. So they're going to be evaluating which assessments really are relevant. I believe it was Denise that talked about, or Liz that talked about benchmark assessments being for the teacher. And that's exactly how we're moving forward, that the benchmark assessments will be designed to produce data for the teacher to use to inform instruction. These are not assessments that we're designing for grading or assessments that we're are using as a part of our metric system, right? This is so that we can have data to say this is where my student is strong in, this is where they need some support, and this is how I can guide my instruction. With regard to looking at the difference between benchmark assessments that are designed by teachers and benchmark assessments that might be pre-purchased, I think the critical thinking there stems from the criteria that the assessment committee established as non-negotiables. Some of those criteria were that they wanted something that's computerized, that they wanted something that they didn't have to spend exorbitant amount of time scoring, that they wanted something that would come back within 24 hours. These are the scores. They wanted something that really married growth with the idea of the proficiency. And so with these criteria in mind, then we're saying, well, what's going to also take away the time we're spending designing assessments and put time back onto the teacher's plate to really just teach, right? Because if they're spending so much time with assessment, then we're taking the time away from the teaching. And so then that's how we're considering something that might already exist as an option, so that we're not having to have the teachers design assessments and design choices and spend time scoring, right? We want the assessment to serve its function, but we want the teacher to be able to spend their time teaching. So I think those were some clarifying points.
I agree. And I just want to take a second to thank Mr. Mendez and all the supervisors and Ms. Butler. This has been a tremendous undertaking, and the direction is very good, exactly where the district needed to go. Small steps, you have to crawl before you walk, and that assessment committee is doing tremendous work and making sure that we really cover a lot of the subject areas and the grade levels, which is being done. So I want to thank all of you for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is invite the board to come back up. Mr. Messis, if you don't mind coming over to this podium, the board is going to ask you questions first, and then we will then bring up the supervisors who are here with Mr. Mendez to address the second topic we talked about.
Thank you to everyone who worked so hard on this. First, I guess I will call on Mr. Messis, how do you say your name?
Messis.
For Verify Residents, and to respond to any questions the board may have. I'll start with my colleague, Mr. Robertson. Do you have any questions for the Verify Residents program?
As you mentioned, I see one reference to over 100, more than 100 aggregated reported databases, and then when you were doing your presentation, you mentioned access to 1,000 databases. To execute this for us, what are we actually accessing?
You're going to be accessing three major data providers or aggregators. The aggregators take data from all these hundreds of different reporting agencies. There's three main ones you're going to get. We call them Database 1, Database 2, and the U.S. Postal Service database. The reason that I say anywhere from 100 to 900 is there's 100 major reporting agencies to one of the data aggregators.
Got it.
And there's almost 800 to one of the other ones. And then what we do is we supply the two of them to back up each other. I'll give you an example. When you order a pizza from Domino's and you give me your phone number, they know the address to deliver the pizza. I have access to that database. So if I have a phone number, I can tell you where the address goes to. Sometimes we don't have an address for the parent. We just have a phone number. We can retrace it and we can know what the address is.
Okay. What's the longest term that, with a client that you've been utilizing this service?
I would probably say annually for about 6 years.
About 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
Did you find, going from year to year, that there was any sort of decrease, dramatic decrease in terms of, because at some point, I would imagine, I don't know if they promoted what was going on, but I would imagine that the numbers would, as people realized what was being done, that it would start to decrease over a period of time, or what?
One of the main reasons they do the annual is to limit their re-registration program. So let's say I run the database audit for you, and we have 2,000 names that come back, no match or no record. They're the only ones you really have to do the re-registration for. You can leave the other 5,000 people alone. You could say they were randomly selected, which the computer actually did. It randomly selected them as potential fraudsters.
Man hours on the re-registration, absolutely.
A lot of man hours, because you're only re-registering the people that came back as no match or no record.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Schwartzbaum?
Can you discuss the frequency and the timing? I think you mentioned you do it annually. You do it once a year?
Some school districts, we do it annually, and then some of them will have us do the main audit, let's say 10,000 students in anywhere between September through January. And then they'll do the newly enrolled students that come in January for the second half of the semester. Then we'll do maybe another 100 or 200, depending on how many they have. And we charge the same lower discounted rate for that lower amount.
Okay. And can you discuss the usefulness of the third database, the U.S. Postal Service, given that many people have the option to opt out of any paper, really going paperless? Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming your database 1 and database 2 is based upon many data aggregators.
Yes. One of the things we found out with the U.S. Postal Service National Change of Address database is that people need to get mail. They need to get checks. And when they move from one location to another, they don't want to miss any of their checks, whatever checks they might be. So they'll immediately do a change of address form with the post office. The moment they do that, I have their name, the date, the new address, and what type of change it was.
Okay, thank you.
And they're one of the best sources of information has been the post office, because once you see change of address family, you know they moved. And you'll know what the exact address is that they moved to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
I have a question and a comment. The data that's required from us, do you need it in a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet to you?
Yes, I provide you with an Excel spreadsheet template, and it'll have the columns specific to what we need.
Okay.
You can get that off of your Genesis normally.
Right, yeah, okay. And my comment is, the program, I think, brings good value. Even if we find one student for the price that we're being charged, and if you add on the savings of the man hours, we're talking, tens of thousands of dollars in savings. So I think it's an easy win-win situation for the district.
We also help you with your man hours for your truancy residency officers, because we're telling them where the child is supposedly living, so now they know where to go instead of doing surveillance or wasting a lot of time. They'll be able to go to an exact address.
Yeah, okay, that's all I have.
Mrs. Lapp?
How long does it take to get the results back once you run your program?
72 hours.
That's quick. Okay. In the information that you gave to us, you had ballparked 5% of our entire student body would come up may be unauthorized out-of-district students based on your experience in statistical research. Assuming we have 7,000 kids, 5% is about 350 kids. Your information up here had ballparked about 140 to 280, so I'm curious where the discrepancy is.
I did more research on what you've had done in the past, and I calculated what our statistics would be, and when we merged the two together, I got a better, more refined number for you.
Okay, and when you spoke with Mr. Robertson about the database as far as the phones go, now I understand your home phone would come up, you know, whatever your street address. Would your cell phone also? Because many of our parents solely give cell phone numbers.
We have access to all the utility companies as well as the cell phone companies. So what will happen is I'll have the address where you registered the phone when you first got the phone, but we don't use that as the main indicator. That's more of a third step on follow-up investigation. That wouldn't be part of this.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Schwartzman?
Can you discuss the hotline, how it works, how you actually have implemented in other districts?
We run the hotline both ways, by phone and on internet, on our website. So people can go to our website, which is verifyresidence.com. They can report a tip, and they'll give us the name of the student, where the student is actually living, parent name. They'll give us all the details. We then send that to the school district for free. We give it to them so that they can then act on it. The reward hotline list on our website is actually a lost leader for marketing for us, because it'll give us an introduction to schools that we might not have approached, and we're giving them information. As far as the phone calls, we'll get phone calls every day. They're anonymous. They'll say, I know that, you know, Janie Jones is living at this address, but she's going to school in your district. And usually it's related to some sort of family dispute.
So how do you create public awareness of the hotline?
Some school districts will put posters up. It depends if they want to get that in depth. But I got to be honest with you, with Google and the internet, people are finding the hotline all by themselves.
Years ago, we did have an anonymous hotline. Does that still exist?
Not to my understanding. This would be one that we would publicize to people, because we want, again, the reason we did the re-registration is to verify people live here, and we want to continue that, and we want to make sure people understand that we're very serious, that if you're coming to school here, you need to live in West Orange, be domiciled in West Orange. So this is a continuation of that. So this hotline would be even a little more publicized, that they can use it.
I think very similar to what the police use for Crime Stoppers, and using the posters, I think, is going to be a big deterrent.
Yeah, we actually offer a reward, and almost 90% of the people that give us tips don't want the reward. They just want the information to be out there.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions to add. I guess as a cost-benefit factor, I'm not sure of the exact number that we spent on re-registration or how many students we found. Mr. Calavanda, do you have that number?
No, I don't.
Okay. I see on page 4 you have the student residence investigation fees. That's over and above the
Correct.
10,000.
Correct, but you do have residency officers. Some districts
Yes.
don't have that, so it wouldn't
Yes.
be necessary.
So you wouldn't have to testify in court. You
Correct.
just pass it on to our people.
Correct. We're just going to give you data, and then you can act on it. Your residency officers will know what to do with the data once they get it.
Okay. Now, I attended your program at school boards, and we were offered a discount if you came to us.
Yes, you'll get 100 free searches with your audit.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to make sure you were going to honor that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we get those researches in the spring after you do the main one?
You can get them whenever you want. That's fine with me.
Okay, as a follow-up then afterwards?
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, Lauren, can you give a microphone so he can sit in the front row, let the parents come up, anybody who has questions for him, and at that point, he can sit and respond to the questions. And just for the board's sake, we do not have this on the agenda. This is for discussion purposes meeting, and then it'll be on the next agenda. I'll be recommending this program on the February agenda. Okay? I'm sorry? Did he just present it?
Yes.
Sure. Jim, you can share that PowerPoint with me, correct?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get it.
Thank you.
The website.
Sure.
The district website. Okay. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to come to the microphone, state your name and address, and we have a 3-minute time limit on the clock to allow for everyone to have an occasion to speak. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Robin Iserlis, 22 Yale Terrace. Thank you, Mr. Messis, for your presentation. I'm curious about how co-residence is dealt with in terms of family disputes, if a child lives with grandma half-time, or mom or dad, or is out of district. What are the nuances around that? Thank you.
What will happen is we'll give the residency officer the new address that might be out of district. And this is where the residency officer comes in. They're going to be doing their homework. They're going to be doing investigation. They'll be knocking on the door of the father's house, let's say, out of district, and then they'll determine how many days a week they're actually staying at that location. If we were doing the investigation, we'd be doing surveillance to try to figure out how many nights the child is actually domiciling out of district. Normally, we would do 3 mornings of surveillance 1 week, 3 mornings another week, wait a week, and then do another 3 mornings for a total of 9. And then we would actually know where the child is domiciling.
And just to comment on that, that's exactly what our residency officers are doing, that exact makeup.
Hi, Tony Edelstein, 50 Davy Drive. This is actually a question for, I guess, the board or Mr. Calvano, because I may have misunderstood the answer to the question. Do we know how many students in the most recent re-registration process were identified as not living in the district? Because I thought I heard it said that we didn't have that number yet.
He doesn't have that available
Sorry?
tonight. He does not have that number available tonight. I know it was over 100, but I'm not sure.
We, again, between the combination of people who are moving out of district that we knew were moving out and kids that we found that didn't live here that needed to be moved out, it was right around 150.
Okay.
Am I on? I think when Mr. Calavano said no, he said he was referring to the cost.
Okay, I had heard cost, but I thought I'd also heard.
no, I know specifically we had 150 kids.
Okay,
We're
good.
quite aware of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello? For the next board meeting, can you get us that data?
It's right around 150.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the data. We've looked at it a couple of different times.
Okay. Any further questions? Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be in touch with you tomorrow, Jim. Appreciate you. Okay, if I could invite Ms. Butler, Cinciano, and Ms. DeMartinez up to, you know what, why don't you stay there? We'll give you the microphone. If you don't mind coming up in the front, though. And then we'll let the parents come up and ask any questions about the strategic plan or the district goal updates.
Okay. Okay, I'll start with Mr. Robertson. Do you have any questions for? I'm going to start with Mrs. Butler. With Mrs. Butler.
Yes, please. First of all, thank you for the tremendous work that you and your team are doing to really take the department in an even better direction. As you talked about the various committees and how you're looking at evaluating time, one of the things I wasn't really hearing, though, was evaluation of capabilities and certifications and training. The New Jersey Department of Education, according to their standard certificate for a school counselor, it states that they should have a master's degree and then has X number of credits for counseling, testing and evaluation, psychology, et cetera. And I'm interested to know what percentage of our counselors actually have that level, meet that certification level and requirement, and if they do not, what's being done to help them obtain that, or to, where do we stand on that?
As far as I know, all of our school counselors meet the state requirement. They have their master's degree, and they have the New Jersey School Counselors Associate, the New Jersey School Counselor Certificate. As it relates to the number of hours that they should have in a specific area, I cannot provide you with that information. I would think that if they completed their master's degree and they have their certification, that they have met those requirements that you're stating there.
Excellent, excellent. Are we currently, as you're evaluating this process, and I'm thinking about some of the needs that I've heard come up over the past few years, are we providing our students with financial profiles for the colleges. I'll give an example. I've run into several students who've applied to UVA, including African American and Hispanic students who could potentially get monies through other schools, both for diversity purposes as well as needs-based or merit-based. And when I spoke with them, they didn't realize that UVA was only going to give money to a DC or Virginia student. Are we providing our kids with financial profiles for the schools as they're applying to them?
Yes, we are. As our students are applying, we encourage them, number one, to provide their financial information to that particular college or university because that can afford them opportunities at times. And we're also asking that we obtain information from the financial aid departments at the various schools, and we make sure that our students are provided with that information.
So there's somewhere there's published where I could find, say, be able to look at a list of colleges and see.
No.
Similar to the Forbes article that came out where they had,
No.
Okay.
Mr. Robertson, one of the things we're leading kind of off of that question, I was talking to Mr. Schwartzbaum last meeting that we're identifying where they were accepted to, but also, where they've agreed to go, but also where they were accepted to go. Many times, the students and families choose to go to a college for different reasons, but they were accepted into some other colleges that are very, very fine. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for us to identify that kids were offered to go to certain schools but chose not to. And I think that's important, and we're going to make sure that happens this year.
Okay. That's actually on a slightly, thank you for explaining that. Because we do have a lot of kids accepted to top colleges who may decide to go for something that's more mid-tier college. But from the financial standpoint, what I was getting to is before the kids even apply, as they're doing their college planning, mm-hmm. it may be helpful to have that kind of financial profiles for the schools that they're going to look at before they get into the actual application phase. Because I did run into a lot of kids who said, "Oh, I didn't know that," So just something to consider moving ahead.
Thank you.
Alumni. I know this is not solely for your department. Yes.
Add something to that. Mrs. Butler, aren't the students able to go on collegeboard.com, create the profile of their search, and just run a report on all the financials for the colleges they're interested in?
Yes.
And get it? Okay, because I remember doing that.
It doesn't necessarily list when it comes to diversity dollars as well.
It does. You put in the search profile and run it.
Okay. All right. Alumni. I know this isn't something that would fall totally under your department. Alumni is a much bigger, the alumni database is a much bigger challenge. But is there anything that's, alumni can be a wealth can provide a wealth of resources for us, ranging from for those who have businesses or working for corporations, internships, to helping kids with the actual application process, the college tours, or even providing recommendations. We've had some kids who volunteered for that. Is there any progress being made in terms of guidance working with the administration to develop that alumni database so it can become a truly accessible tool for our kids?
No.
Okay.
Is this on? Hi. Okay. Mr. Robertson, you must be aware, though, that the mayor and Jim Quinn do have an alumni association, and the database does exist?
They do, but I know it's also not really complete. If we were to break it out by years and looking at even at the most recent ones, there's been an issue over the years with our access to a real alumni database. For instance, if I were to ask, gee, could you come up with a list for me of the graduates we've had and how to contact them, or potentially be put in touch with them who've graduated Amherst over the past 10 years, or something like, if I'm applying to Amherst. It has the database has not been constructed in such a manner that is a reality yet. And there've been some early, they've done recently, they did a great thing with there was an alumni event last year, I forget what class it was for, where they are starting to capture that information. But in terms of actual database management, database development, to my knowledge, we're nowhere near.
We're nowhere near. We are definitely working on it. Mr. Mashkoff is working on it with Mr. Quinn and with Mr. Santiago. So there is work that's being done, and you're right, it takes time to build that database. But it is definitely being worked on this year.
Thank you.
I believe it's also student-driven. It depends on whatever information the student provides. Because
You
if
have
they
to-
don't complete it, you just don't have the data.
Agreed, but we still have to do the outreach, capture the data, and then organizing. There's a whole process. Open houses. I know that you have a very limited staff, and your staff are already giving tremendous amount of time and direct services, direct and indirect services to the kids. And is there any sort of partnership to cover more of the open houses that happen regionally, as well as for targeted institutions and looking within both Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region? Is there any sort of partnership between guidance and the administration to cover more of the college open houses and do more outreach and relationship development?
The counselors have opportunities to attend the various, say, breakfasts or dinners that are sponsored by the colleges in the different regions to develop those rapports and those relationships. There are times where our counselors have spent time during the summer to go to the different programs that are offered that affords the counselors an opportunity to visit and develop partnerships or relationships with the various colleges and universities.
Okay, that's great. College and Career Night, your team has done a great job of continuing to build the College and Career Night over the past few years. It's improved every year, more colleges coming, more people showing up. Is there any effort that's been made in terms of helping to those who have special needs to align with particular colleges that are servicing those with special needs? I'll give an example. Some of the colleges, when they're having their open houses, will have, on the same day of the open house, a reception for special needs students and their parents, and to talk about what they're offering. When we're doing our College and Career Night, are we doing any sort of reception or event? Or?
Yes, we're not doing specifically a reception, but we have invited various college programs at various colleges that focus in or target students who have special situations and begin to work with them. Also, during our lunch period here at the high school, we invite different programs from various colleges in the area that have special programs for students in special circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Last question. As over the past few years, I've received some feedback from parents and shared with you that some of the counselors were more adept in terms of helping to direct kids on college applications or what colleges to identify that fit their career choices and their long-term objectives than others. There were some cases where a young lady or a young man who was who had the credentials to go to a Wellesley or an Amherst or a Yale was being directed to a University of Pittsburgh or Penn State. And I know that some counselors are more experienced in that than are others. Are we doing any sort of alignment in terms of our counselors' experiences and expertise with what level the kids are at, and to say align those who are more experienced to that with juniors and seniors, or is there any sort of alignment there?
Every Friday morning, what the counselors are doing, or what we have developed, is a time where the counselors do meet to discuss students who there may be a question or concern about as it relates to where they're applying to, and to also get additional suggestions from those more seasoned counselors who might be able to provide them with some direction and some guidance.
Thank you very much. Good luck in your continued efforts.
Mr. Schwartzbaum.
Can you discuss how you determine students' needs more on the elementary and the middle school, specifically regarding for guidance?
On the elementary level, at the elementary level in the school counseling program, it's more of a curriculum base. The counselors are going into the different classrooms and presenting different lessons
to the students. Students who are referred to the school counselors at the elementary level, it's generally on a needs basis. If there's an issue or concern that may come up that relates to that particular student, the student is referred to the school counselor for that additional support, that counseling, or whatever the case may be. The teachers at the elementary level are very effective in referring the students to the school counselor as well at the elementary level. The middle school level, more so curriculum. Once again, the counselors are going into the classrooms, presenting the lessons, curriculum-based lessons. The individualized student referrals either come from the parents, come from the students, come from school administrators, and the counselors then address those specific needs of the students.
In regard to college guidance, the high school, how, in your determination, how involved are the parents?
Not as much as we would like for them to be.
So how
I can say that we host several nights where we try to engage the parents to participate in the process. And each time that we host those evenings, the turnout is not what we would like it to be. Very minimum support that is provided. I can tell you that this year we hosted 3 financial aid nights to assist parents with filling out the FAFSA application. And totally, and I would say in the 3 nights total, if we had 50 parents who attended total in all 3 nights, that's the attendance that we have had. I made myself available on a particular evening. I would say Wednesday evenings. I'm here 6 to 8 if that is an issue, because I thought that perhaps there were times where we were conducting those evening meetings, the parents are not available. During the day, open door. Parents are more than welcome to come in and ask, or the counselor specifically is not available, I make myself available to meet with the parent. So we have afforded opportunities for the parents, but we continue to work to increase that.
So that's one of your challenges, really,
Very much so.
to get the parents
more
engaged to see the importance and
Absolutely.
the availability of, whether it be the availability of different universities that students can go to, as well as the financial aid that's available.
Yes. One thing that we did start at the middle school level, conducting 2 evening meetings at the middle school level, 7th and 8th grade level, for the parents that are there, to begin to once again provide them with the information that they need to know, so that when they enter the high school, they're more in tune with what needs to be done. And the parent participation was minimum. But we'll continue to do what needs to be
You have to be creative.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers.
Just to add on to that, Mr. Butler, I remember in the past you, and I believe it was an initiative of Mrs. Lapp, where you held a session at the library, and I think it was bilingual, and you had somebody come in from NJIT talk about college admissions and the process.
We have.
Do you still do that?
We have someone come in from Essex County College now that comes in and speaks to the students. As a matter of fact, they are coming in the next 2 weeks. I forget the exact date. But they do come in to speak to our students who are undocumented students, the bilingual students who need that additional support.
Thank you.
We probably get more with that population of students. We probably get more participation from our ESL population than any other population within this school.
Wow.
They will come out. They may not necessarily at times understand, even for our
financial aid night, I always have a bilingual person there because that is most of our population that do come that evening.
Thank you. Mr. Charles?
I have just a comment on a question. My colleagues and I, along with, I guess, the administration and some of the parents, for that matter, for the past couple of years, we felt that the guidance was one area that we needed to improve the performance district-wide, and so much that we made it a district goal. So I'm glad to see that we're taking steps this year and we're moving forward to that. And I just want to say thank you and commend your staff and yourself for moving this forward, and because the board really thinks that this is some area that needs to be addressed, and I'm glad to see we're putting processes and tools in place to help the students.
And I want to make a comment also. I thank you for taking on that, taking the guidance department, taking the time to make that one of the goals. Because I think that in order for us to be more effective, we have to know what areas do we really need to focus in, and we also need the support of all individuals throughout the process. Right. So I'm glad that that has been a priority.
As I. Thank you. That's all.
Just one quick
Mrs.
follow-up.
Lab?
I'm sorry, Ms. Lab.
Could you let Mrs. Lab go ahead first?
Thank you. Ms. Butler, I've been around for a long time, as you know, and I've seen the numbers of your staff grow and diminish. When we lost $6 million a couple of years ago, we lost some people. Can you just confirm you have currently 1 guidance counselor per elementary, 2 in the middle, and I have no idea what you have at the high school?
11.
Okay, but still those others are still 1?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have 3 SACs, 3 student assistant counselors, 2 of them housed there at the high school, and 1 that goes between Roosevelt and Liberty.
Okay. When my son was in school, he graduated 2009. We had Christine Nesbitt. I don't know if you were here or not then. Okay. Yeah, you came in 2010 or something like that. Do we still have a dedicated counselor for special education students, or is that spread throughout?
Spread throughout.
Okay. I'm curious then, again, because this was before your time, do you see a need to have 1 guidance counselor dedicated, as Mr. Robertson was talking about, clearly there's special needs, or are you comfortable with the level of information that all your staff have at the high school to deal with that specific group?
I'm comfortable with that level. They meet collaboratively with the child study team as well as Dawn to discuss, different programs, any issues or concerns. I'm pretty comfortable with them being spread out.
Okay. 2 areas that I did not hear in your presentation, I just don't know if you're just not up there yet or are you planning on. One was consideration of 504, which your department does provide, and also HIB. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're planning to do for those 2 areas?
The HIB and 504, just continuing to focus on processes and procedures and addressing any needs, moving forth with both of them.
Okay. When you spoke of the elementary guidance and what their role is, and again, maybe things have changed since my kids were in elementary, but I do remember the guidance counselors also offering social skills groups for general education students as well. Do they still do that?
Some do, some do not. It's on a as-need basis in each one of the buildings.
Ms. Lab, you have to remember, too, that 1 guidance counselor in Redwood and 1 guidance counselor in a smaller elementary school are very different. The population makeup of certain buildings is very different. Certain buildings can utilize the social skills. Not that probably every building could have students falling under that, but we have to remember that sometimes we're talking about 150 more kids in certain elementary schools, so they're limited because they're all going through in teaching, they're all going through in counseling, and they're having kids come to them for different reasons. So it's a challenge that we need to keep in mind. 3 schools in particular are much larger than some of the other ones.
Yeah, no, I know. My son actually graduated Redwood, and at that time I don't think we had 600 kids there, but they certainly had the social skills group going on. Then Christine Kavanaugh used to run them, and it was pretty effective for the students that needed that. So is it then?
I think that the role of the counselors has changed a little bit as well. At the elementary levels, the school counselors not only are conducting the curriculum, going into the classes and conducting those lessons. There are also the anti-bullying specialists doing various investigations. They're the INRS, the 504 chairperson for each one of those committees as well. So I think the roles of the counselors has changed a little bit, which does not necessarily afford those opportunities, I'll be honest, to have those individualized groups or small groups with the students.
The other thing that's challenging, many of them are the test coordinators for Park, which is a 4 to 6 week commitment every day.
Right.
So they fit in seeing kids, helping kids while they're still
And not
doing
only
what they need
are
to
they
do.
during those 4 to 6 weeks, but it's the time leading up to the testing. Most individuals think that the counselors only do the testing during that testing window. They don't only do the testing during that testing window. It's the preparation that has to be done prior to the testing, the hours that they spend in making sure that the information is input correctly, the scheduling of the teachers, just the whole scheduling process. You'll see that in the as we move forth with the time and task analysis with the school counselors, you will see that the direct service versus indirect service will be slightly different than it was, say, from that September to January. February, it begins to, the direct service versus indirect service begins to change a little bit because of the roles and responsibilities of the counselors during those particular times.
Right. Well, I know the job description, if there is such a thing for your department, is massive. I mean, and then, you know, everything just gets tabled if you have to engage your counselors into grief counseling. And that's an immediate stop everything, whatever you have scheduled today, we're going to this school to deal with whatever. And unfortunately, with a district this size, with the amount of staff and with the amount of students, it's unfortunate that it happens more often than we care for it to happen at all. So again, I just want to thank you and your department for doing everything you do, because it's a lot. And I look forward to getting a further update from you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson, you had a follow-up?
Just a couple quick follow-ups. As you're doing the rebuilding process, are you looking at the opportunity to utilize career profiling and assessment tools like Myers-Briggs, or to get a department member who's licensed in that? I know that that's not the only tool, but there are a number of tools out there.
That's a possibility. I mean, it's not something that I can say that I'm looking at right now. Currently, we use Naviance at the high school, which has an opportunity for the students to do that career exploration or that interest inventory as it relates to the career alignment. One of our recommendations is that we implement Naviance at the 6th through 8th grade level as well, so that, and a part of the curriculum in the advisory period will be to utilize the career component of Naviance at those levels. With that information, it could be carried over from year to year with our students, so that each year when the counselors are working with the students, it's not like starting all over again. When they do come to the high school, we will have somewhat of a profile of that student, what their career interests have been over the last few years.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that you're expanding on Naviance and utilizing it in that manner. I would still draw a distinction, though, with what can be accomplished with something like Myers-Briggs, where it may suggest certain areas of strength or opportunity for a kid that the kid may not have thought of on sheer,
and that's what Naviance does as well. Naviance has several tools where they are able to do that as well. But we will certainly, as we assess our programs, the guidance programs, we'll certainly give that some thought.
My last question is, what are some of the areas where you feel you could use more support? Like I remember about a year ago you mentioned it would be great to have social media support to get the word out to both parents as well as students, and even more so with the parents, I think it was, to engage them more. Is that still an area where you could use some more support, and are there other areas as well?
Absolutely, that getting the parents more engaged would be certainly something that we could use some support with. The social media, I know that this year, just knowing the process, who to provide the information with to in order to get it out to the public has been an asset to us as well, because previously that process or procedure, we didn't know what that process and procedure was. So knowing that has helped, to publicize. Having the support and understanding of the administrative team and the board also will be helpful.
Yeah, I've seen your financial aid night event on Facebook, so it's getting out there. I just have one quick question to add. You mentioned direct and indirect counseling. What are some types of non-school counseling?
Could I provide you with,
okay.
I have it all here, but I just didn't give it to you. But it outlines direct versus indirect. It provides you with much of the information.
Counseling. Okay, that's great. And then one last thing. You mentioned surveys. Do you also do surveys of alumni, their senior year, the exit surveys?
Yeah, we do a survey of our seniors.
Yes,
and yes.
that would be it. Okay. I know maybe not this board, but maybe the previous board we had discussed that, so I'm glad you have that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Thank you for all your hard work. And to all your counselors, please extend our gratitude for all their hard work as well. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to switch gears for the ELA.
Okay, I believe
update.
Mrs. Lab had a question for you, Mr. Rutsky, before we
Okay.
switch to ELA.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick question, following up on your special ed presentation. When the assessment is done for the department, will it also be inclusive? She did that. Sorry. Will it also be inclusive of the nursing staff as well as the number of aides that we have in our district?
It will. There's a lot of components to it, looking at all the staffing, and yes, all of that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's turn it over to English Language Arts.
Okay. Mr. Charles, do you have any questions for our supervisors?
Not a
of ELA?
question, just a quick comment.
Wonderful.
I'm glad to hear that the teachers had the input on the benchmarks. I think sometimes getting that feedback at that level for any agency or any organization is vital for the improvement. So I want to commend you guys, both Denise, Liz, and the assistant superintendent. In the short time she's been here, I think she's been doing a lot of things positive and getting us moving in the right direction. So I just want to commend you guys publicly. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you. Mrs. Lab?
Not a lot to say other than thank you very much for bringing this report to us. And I'm a little tired, a little snarky right now, so I'm just going to make the comment that it's really nice to hear that our staff is working on issues that, unlike the Senate confirmation hearings right now, actually know what growth and proficiency are. Yes. So I'm sorry, but it was just like when I heard that, I was like, what am I listening to? So anyway, thank you again for all of your work, and I do look forward to another update from you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mr. Schwartzbaum?
Can you discuss specifically, one of the comments you made is over the years, benchmarks have changed. We have this moving target. Can you specifically give examples of some of the benchmarks that have changed and why, the reasons for those changes?
With the Assessment Literacy Committee, one of the things that we have done because Denise and I, being fairly new in the district, this is my second year, this is Denise's second and a half year. What we wanted to do and what we think it's important before we move forward with initiatives is to understand where the teachers have been in the history of the district. I think it's important to know that, to honor it, and to understand and get that feedback. So what we actually did was we put kind of like a 20-year timeline on the side of the wall in the central office conference room, and we started to talk about when did benchmarks, when did you start working with benchmarks? And so we had teachers who have been here 20 years plus, 15 years, 10 years, kind of walk us through the history. And it really, there was, first it started in certain grade levels, it was just in certain content areas, It was more preparation for the GEPA and the NJ Ask and the HESPA, and it was very standardized driven. And so we just really wanted to get that history. And also, before we came, the benchmarks were taken from the model curriculum from the NJDOE. They didn't necessarily align with the curriculum or the curriculum being taught at that time. They were aligned to the standards, but we were maybe in an informational text unit, and then all of a sudden we were benchmarking on literary texts and so forth. So that was one of the ways where we got some feedback from the teachers, and also, just to kind of let them kind of share, because at the end of the day, we have determined, and the teachers have determined, that the benchmarks are for them. So we really needed to hear from them the history, hear from them their frustrations, and hear from them really what they need from these benchmarks. And so that's kind of, it's been a little bit of this and that with benchmarks.
I just want to add, when we were getting that feedback from the teachers, nothing really came out to us that the benchmarks were for the teachers. So we really had to keep emphasizing that these benchmarks are for you. It's for you to be able to take that data and inform instruction in the classroom. So I think that's where we really learned what was happening throughout the years and how we really need to move forward and make sure that these benchmarks are for the teachers so that they can guide their instruction.
So one of the things you talked about was assessment for West Orange versus, and how does that relate to state versus national? And I'm going to throw in this multiple part question, but it's the issue of standardized testing. I mean, we live in a standardized testing, and how does that relate, and how do we get all this to jive together?
So I think part of the conversation was kind of going back to the proficiency and growth. What is our purpose? Are the benchmarks to make sure that the students are proficient among the grade level standards, or that they are growing so they can meet the grade level standards? And so, and I think when you look at all of the assessments that are happening in the classroom, from informal to formal, I think over the course of through all of those assessments, the teachers do a great job of all of that they are making sure that they know where their students currently are and how they can grow, but also then looking at the curriculum and looking at the resources and materials that are aligned to the standards, and then working with them to be proficient with the standards. But at the end of the day, the assessment committee really defined it as we are, and I have their definition that one of the things that we worked on in the presentation was that the purpose of assessment in West Orange is to measure student progress through standard-based instruction. So that was really focusing on, they want the progress of their students. They want them to grow in every aspect they possibly can.
Can you just comment from your perspective, does it make sense to use third-party assessments versus trying to utilize time? Because it is very time-consuming to create your own assessments. Can you comment?
Well, this is what our next meeting that's coming up this week, this is what we're going to be looking at and getting their feedback on, is it something that we want to do for the future? Do we want to have some kind of, we know that they want to have some kind of online assessment, and do we want it purchased or whatnot? So we're kind of going through all those different things, and especially, what Ebony had mentioned also was that the teachers want the immediate results. So having something online, because that's ideally what we need, is something that's immediate, so that we can take that information and the next day apply it to our instruction in the classroom.
So it appears that using a third-party one that's available would make much more sense, but you'll, okay.
Yeah, we're definitely exploring that, because I think there's pros and cons to both. The district made, although it's something that is made from the teachers, it takes a long time. In addition to being educators, you need to have some idea of psychometrics, which not all of us have, making sure that our questions are vetted. And also with the district made, there is always that give and take, that feedback, that tweaking, and that's one of those pieces of just kind of it's then not necessarily building consistency. So we're really exploring both and making sure that the teachers really are part of that decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
First of all, thank you for the hard work you're doing, and I really am ecstatic about the fact that you're engaging the teachers, listening to the teachers, and trying to really pare down the number and types of assessments being used. Because from Fondas and Pinnell to benchmarks to quarterlies to right down to the chapter test and the section test, it's a lot of testing for the kids and definitely for the teachers. So thank you for doing that and really engaging them in that partnership. Few questions. I've been able to, I have a son in 10th and a daughter in 5th, and I've been able to see with my daughter how grammar has improved. It went from 0 to some grammar being included in the curricula, but it's still very, very little. And I know from kids who are also taking, whether they're going to Kumon or Huntington or other sources, additional after-school programs, grammar is an area where we are consistently weak. My son, actually, in the high school, said, "Dad, I thought you guys promised to, because we haven't had grammar since 3rd grade, to provide us with something in between that was going to help us to improve." And I've heard from parents saying, my son is now writing essays, and we won't be there in college to correct his essays for him. What are we doing to really address grammar and to do it at the high school level where the kids, frankly, haven't had it since 3rd grade?
Well, all of the curriculum is aligned to the language standards, and the language standards for each grade level include grammar standards. However, at the secondary level, it's more of it is expected that we have a good handle on grammar as we move into the middle school and the high school, and so therefore the grammar standards are either just those higher complex grammar. We know that it is a systematic issue. We understand that it's a K-12. We understand that there are gaps. I have provided, when we have revised the middle school curriculum, we specifically wrote grammar mini lessons in there within the writing. The teachers all have access to IXL Learning, which is a great online site, which you can go to the specific grade level, 6th grade, 7th grade, and it breaks down all of the language standards and then gives mini lessons. And actually students you can do it as a class on the smart board as like mini lessons and do-nows, and then we encourage the teachers to then, if whatever the focus is, misplaced modifiers, then that is after the lesson and it's taught, then that is what we are expecting to see in the writing. So it's kind of compartmentalized into a specific skill. That's what we are doing at the middle school. At the high school level, a group of teachers got together and developed writing expectations for each grade level at the high school. What is expected for a thesis statement in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and with that built-in expectations for grammar. So it is not perfect. We do know that it's reactive at this point. It's a systematic issue that we need to address, and we are doing that, but doing that through writing, because research has shown that through writing and through authentic student writing, it's more effective than the skill and drill that kind of I think we've all been used to in our education.
Well, I'll have to argue that point with you another night, because as in our world language courses, we learn it with that sense of rigor and organization, and they come away learning it better in that at the middle school and high school level than they do in our own English language. So we'll have to differ on that point. One of the things that was approved and promised, and I haven't really seen it as much, is I've seen a little bit of it with my daughter, the vocabulary building and what later on was often called SAT vocabulary. Beyond extracting challenging vocabulary from whatever text the children are reading, actually learning supplementary vocabulary and practicing with sentences that they can then apply to other things. How are we doing with the vocabulary building? I'm not seeing it in terms of the, quote, SAT type vocabulary at the high school level, and I've seen a little bit more of it at the elementary school level coming through.
We do have vocabulary, of course, is in the standards, and all of our curriculum is aligned to the standards. We do at the high school level, many of the teachers create additional vocabulary lists specifically for the SAT, specifically in 10th and 11th grade. It is something that we are working on to build more of a consistent practice through all of the courses throughout every single teacher. We're also working the 8th grade. Teachers are working on the honors curriculum right now, and that was one of the things, is to bring in SAT vocabulary into the middle school honors programs as well as a practice. So that's being written right now.
But the honors program is dealing with a small percentage of our kids.
Correct.
I would hope that
At the high school,
we've
no,
taught
it's
for years that the
college
kids
prep
in the
levels
middle,
as well.
yeah, but even with the younger kids, the kids in the middle
Right.
need that just as much as the honors kids.
Correct, and they currently do that, like you said, pulling it from the specific text that they're using at the time.
Right, but the supplementary, I get the pulling from the text, but the supplementary I'm not really seeing, so I hope we're going to work on that more. Next is, we were supposed to be teaching Latin and Greek roots so that kids could use those roots to decipher, given that most of the English language is derived from Latin and Greek with some dramatic, et cetera. But we were supposed to be teaching that so that kids could dissect and decipher words that they have never encountered before. Where are we with that?
I can speak to at the 6th grade level, we specifically wrote that into the curriculum. They use Get to the Root, and they do either weekly or bi-weekly practices, and we have built a list that then the 7th grade teachers can see what the 6th grade teachers have covered, what they need to cover, and so on. But at the 6th grade level, the teachers work with, it's called Get to the Root, and there are weekly practices with roots and suffixes and prefixes and all of that.
So that's going to eventually be adapted for 7th and 8th grade as well?
Correct, and there's a heavy emphasis at the 6th grade level, so there can really be as much of a mastery as it can, so then the 7th and 8th grade can kind of just reinforce.
Well, what about at the high school level? Given that they're tackling the toughest vocabulary and often encountering even more words that are outside of the everyday language, are they being given those types of tools and skills, especially as they're going into SAT and much more complex literature?
Like I said, when they look at vocabulary in context, they also look at Latin and Greek roots and prefixes, and also throughout the study of Shakespeare. That provides a lot of opportunity for word study.
Okay. I'm just not sure it's being taught like in a very regimented fashion.
We are revising pretty much almost every course in the English department in the revising the curriculum for the ELA department this year. And so we will make sure, as we do, we make sure that all aspects of the standards are aligned, and each of those components will be addressed.
Just 3 more quick questions. One, I love the workshop model. I know what it's all about. I know that in conjunction with it, you have a guided reading track, and that's something I have seen improve. Could you talk about what we're really trying to accomplish from a guided reading standpoint?
Okay, so guided reading is when you're taking students on their instructional level. So teachers facilitating those students reading on an instructional level, reading strategies and vocabulary and different aspects of reading within a small group instruction. So within the Reader's Workshop, teachers are pulling students in for guided reading to work in small group, and other students are reading at their independent level of a read to self. Other students are doing a writing about reading, students are doing a partner reading, and that's what we're really honing in for a pure Reader's Workshop model.
And I know that it's not called guided reading as we go 6 through 12, but there is a directed component. But are we also teaching them, in addition to these these mini kind of lessons, are we teaching them how to really analyze and dissect a complete work of art? Going with Tom Sawyer or going with Huck Finn and Jim down the river, understanding the symbolism of the river. Are we really teaching them how to dissect a complete work of art?
At what level?
At either level, in terms of how guided reading is applied. Guided or directing the student to help understand not just a section, not just a paragraph, not just an article, but to understand the work.
Well, when teachers are developing a mini lesson, they're taking a very explicit one specific skill, very explicit, direct teaching. And as they do that mini lesson, then they go off to whatever it is, and they're independent or they're guided reading. But as a mini lesson, it is a whole group lesson that specifically is on an explicit skill.
And many
Okay.
times they use a read aloud throughout the course of a number of days or a number of weeks, depending upon the grade level. And so therefore, that whole text is analyzed and looked at, but specific skills each day.
Specific skills, but you can attack a work of art and not just a section of a work of art.
They look at whole text.
Okay. College and career, tying it into college and career, one of the things I noticed at the high school level is that, I know that there's some work being done on this, that there's a much more definitive alignment with college and career and IMS and with the civics small learning community than there is as much with IH, and showing how what they're learning in IH can tie to careers and what type of careers the skills that their love and their passion how that can translate from a career standpoint. I know that's going to delve a little bit into guidance, but at IH it's being generated. Really, it's kind of part of the at IMS is part of the curriculum as well, whether it's watching an operation or the special speakers that are coming in. What are we doing at the high school level to really tie the humanities curriculum more to careers?
I wanted to answer that question because the guidance department is working collaboratively with the supervisors to do just what it is that you have stated. We're taking a look at the different content areas and looking specifically at those content areas to see what areas our students could go into. This week we have NJIT coming in, and they contacted us and they wanted to come in to talk about specific careers and the areas of focus that students can focus on when they're at the high school, the content area, how the English, how this history, how the math, the sciences relate to a particular content area. I will be meeting with the supervisors over the next couple weeks to discuss exactly what it is that you're saying, because a part of our college fair in April will be to highlight careers and how those careers, how that content area moves into a specific career, and how that career can then move into a specific college of study. We want to work collaboratively with the supervisors to develop that career exploration, that time where they can take a look at careers and how they align to how the coursework aligns to different careers, and those careers then are developed at particular colleges.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've answered so many questions tonight. I just have a couple more for you. The Assessment Literacy Committee, you said it's made up of 26 teachers, 9 directors. Are those all K-12 spread across? This is 26 teachers, 9 directors, supervisors. Are they K-12?
The 26 teachers we started off with the Assessment Literacy Committee just focused on ELA. Because we just wanted to keep it very focused. So those 26 teachers are 4 through 8 general ed, ELA, special ed, who, at many times cross the content area, ELA, math, or science, as well as the ESL teachers. We began with Dawn Ribeiro, Kristen Gogarty, and Mary Kuros as well. They were with us from the start. As we started to explore looking at purchase assessments, we definitely wanted to bring in the math supervisors, the science supervisors, as well as Terry Granato as well, because they do offer different content areas, and so we wanted to get them to be a part of it.
Okay. So you're looking at data analysis, and in parentheses you have park and district. Now, we had many students opt out of park the first year and even less the second year. Will the park testing be really a true analysis? Will that data be sufficient?
What we did was we looked at the park evidence statements, which are, in my opinion, very helpful for teachers. It's not necessarily looking at how we did on the park and where we stand with park. It was really looking at each of the evidence statements are aligned to the standards. So it could show the teachers what standards were on the assessments and at how many times, and then where we fell in relationship to the district, if it was, for example, Liberty, where we looked at compared to Roosevelt as a grade level. And then we could, you know, and then obviously you can look at the different subgroups, but we really looked at it to get a sense of how the assessment is aligned to standards, the types of questions aligned to each standards, what they kind of look like. So if we're asking kids about theme, in what way are we asking them that directly aligns to the standards?
Okay.
Ms. Mordecai, the evidence statement is much more authentic than looking at a score because the test is in its third year. So it doesn't make sense when you're looking longitudinally, but the evidence statements allows us to look not only at the building but across the district.
Okay, I understand. Okay, reading specialists is mentioned here. How many reading specialists do we have in the district, Mr. Rutsky? And what is there a ratio reading specialists to students, or is it on an as-needed basis?
And we're one per elementary school.
Okay, and my last question, foundations. Is foundations in every school? Have you been observing that it's being used in every school properly and thoroughly?
Yes. It's actually in all 7 elementary schools, K through 2, and along with myself and the reading specialist, we are getting certified to have our certification in foundation. So we're actually going to the classrooms and we're modeling lessons.
Okay.
And as I do my walkthroughs and whatnot, I'm getting to see the foundations being implemented.
Yeah, because it's such a new program. I was just wondering about the reception. Okay.
Ms. Mordecai, one piece to that. Explain a little bit about what's going on with the coaching, because that's a really important component.
Yes, we also have, we've set up for the district where there's coaching visits that there's 2 coaches that go to the sites, to our on-site schools, and they are arranged to come in and actually be able to model lessons for teachers, do co-teaching with teachers, and then we have study group sessions at the end, and then they help plan for future lessons. So it's been really, really helpful for the teachers because then it kind of follows up with if they have any questions, concerns about the program, how to schedule it and whatnot. So we have that in intervals, and that's been working out really well.
And all the teachers, K2, all buildings are involved in that. All the principals are required to be part of that. Obviously, yes. Denise is running the entire piece of it. We also need to remember that we're asking second graders to know things that the first year is this is their first year of foundations. Mm-hmm. So in 2 years from now, our kindergarten students will now be second graders with 3 years of the foundations program, so their skills are going to clearly be much more suited to where we want them to be.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Reading specialists, are they a position that is required by the Department of Education?
No, they're not.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. Now I'll invite the public to come. Sure.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. As a father of 4 children, ages 23 to 32, I know I'm not saying this is an expert, but the way my children and the way I learned is by really my parents encouraging our kids to read. Didn't matter what you read, you develop grammar, you develop vocabulary, getting all these cue cards, nobody ever remembers them. So it's really encouraging reading. Reading really will get them a long way.
Absolutely, and just to build that love of reading is really important. It's key.
They don't want to put the book down and turn
Yeah.
the light out at night, that's when
Exactly.
you know you won.
Then you know we
It doesn't
won.
matter
Absolutely
what,
agree.
it doesn't matter what you read.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is. It's a great, great problem to have.
I agree, Mr. Schwartzbaum. I remember my parents having us to read all the street signs and reading everything in the supermarket when we were little, so I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Now I'll invite the public, if anyone has any questions for our guidance department or ELA, to please come forward, state your name and address. Does anyone have any questions for? Oh, great. I think we've thoroughly questioned you. Everyone's satisfied. Thank you so much for your hard work. And
Thank you.
Ms. Butler,
Thank
can
you.
you stay one more minute, please? I'm going to go over the links program next, please. Thank you, ladies, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Appreciate
night.
your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay,
Get home
something
safe.
that's not under the superintendent's report that literally came to me over the weekend, or excuse me, on Friday, was an opportunity for us to be part of a partnership with it's called Roadmap to College Program, Essex County, New Jersey chapter, the Links Incorporated. And basically what they want to do is come in and work with our district here in the high school and provide opportunities for the following. It's a workshop model to work with the kids, time and task management workshop, understanding self-learning styles and time management workshop. This is a really big one, a 10-week SAT prep course taught by Kaplan. I wish it was more kids could be involved. They have it capped at 25 students. Financial aid and college admissions workshop, financial literacy workshop, immersion in the arts, college tours, and college scholarships. And if you look at the document, one of the things that's really important is the Myers-Briggs type inventory, which is a personality type, and it helps students to identify their personality type. It helps teachers to know what a student's personality type is, the way they learn, etc. But it really is a wonderful opportunity. It is no cost to the district. This is a group that is looking to come in and work with our high school in particular, and there's program goals to go with it. The only cost the district would need to encumber would be when we need some of our counselors to be part of the workshops, and obviously if it was outside of school hours, they get paid for doing these things. We would need to encumber that money. But I really think this is a great opportunity. We're under a little bit of a timeline here in that the SAT prep course by Kaplan, we need to move on that immediately. I have this on the agenda for tonight to be recommended to put it into the high school. It is a one-year contract that we'd be working with the group, the Links, and if we feel at the end of it that it's not something that we find beneficial, which I do not think that's going to be the case, but we could use it for the year and then go a different direction. So this wasn't under the superintendent's report, but I do want to thank Ms. Butler. She's been working with Ms. Garrison, who is a community member in West Orange that has brought this to our attention. Her and her colleagues realized that this would be a nice program for our students and our high school, so it is on for recommendation. Okay, I'm just going to hand out the HIB report.
Good night, Cheryl. Good night, Cheryl. Thank you.
Thank
Good night, Cheryl.
And as we always talk about, it's from the line from the last meeting up to the top. If you have any questions, this is the opportunity to ask me questions.
Any questions? Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Rutsky. There are no questions.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to hang on to the athletic and extracurricular update for the next meeting, and I'll provide an extensive piece then. Thank you.
Okay, except I just want to provide a shout out to our girls basketball team who
Yes.
are still undefeated. So go Mountaineers.
Yeah, had the joy of watching them defeat Montclair for the first time ever, and they beat them soundly. It was exciting, and our girls are on the roll.
Yes, they're doing well, 13-0.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to invite the public to come up if they have any questions on agenda items, and agenda items only. Please come up to the microphone, state your name, address. There's 3 minutes on the clock. Does anyone have any questions on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none. Okay, moving along. Mrs. Lab, as policy chair, I see here you have 2 policies here for first reading.
Yes, thank you. First, I guess we need a motion for the first reading of policy 5118.2, and I guess we could do them together, Ms. Mordecai?
Yes,
And a
please.
motion as well for 9271.1.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Any second?
I will second.
Okay. As it is just first reading, I'll give a very brief overview on the 2 policies. The first one, 5118.2, is a requirement by the Department of Education as of this past October for districts to have a policy on foster care and educational stability as it relates to the Every Student Succeeds Act, and that is what this is for. Secondly, policy 9271.1 from School Boards Association. This provides clear and distinct protocol for acceptable use of social media by Board of Education members. This comes under governance. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Calavano?
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mrs. Lab?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
President Mordecai?
Yes. May I have a motion for personnel, A through, let's see. Through number 6.
I'll move that.
Thank you. I'd just like to recognize our retirees
You need a
today.
second.
Oh, right.
I'll second.
One second, Mr. Schwartzbaum. Just like to recognize our retirees today. Michelle Clancy, West Orange High School, is retiring. Adele Cristiano from Gregory, and Camille Osborne from the Administration Building are all retiring.
Yeah.
And Mr. O'Toole as well.
We'll miss Mr. O'Toole. He's a heck of a teacher.
Yes.
Really inspirational guy.
Congratulations to them all. Of course, we're sorry to see them go, but I'm sure they're happy to be retiring. Roll call, Mr. Calavano?
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mrs. Lab?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
President Mordecai?
Yes. Okay. May I have a motion for curriculum and instruction, including the addendum?
I'll move that.
Any second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion by the board?
President Mordecai, we have a change on number 4, the applications for school business request for Tom D'Angelo. It should be $742.04.
Okay.
I'll note that in the minutes.
Thank you. That's in attachment number 5. I'd just like to mention that we are also approving tonight interns for a guidance counselor department. So it's great that they may have a couple extra hands to do some work in the guidance while they're being interns. Okay. Roll call, Mr. Calvano.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mrs. Lab?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
President Mordecai?
Yes. May I have a motion for finance? Let's see. A through K through 8, and I will be abstaining as I am being reimbursed under voucher number 5477,
And with the addendum.
and also with the addendum.
I'll move it.
Thank you. And second?
I'll second.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to make a comment.
Any discussion from the board? Mr.
Yes.
Schwartzbaum?
So I just want to comment on finance item C, A, which is special services. There are approximately $380,000 of unbudgeted of children going out of district, and in reviewing the fund availability on general fund on page 9, there is on account number 11-000-100-565, which is tuition for out of district, 566, there is availability in the budget of only $313,000. So we will need to come up with the funds in order to meet these requirements. So my question to Mr. Calvano is, how are we going to go about that?
Well, at some of these tuition rates I'm looking at now, they're actually going to be prorated, so it's not going to be the full tuition amount. There's one for about $82,000 that would be reimbursed by the state of New Jersey. There was one child I recall, he was going to one school and he actually switched into another school, and this school that he's going to be attending is less than the original school, so there'll be some breakage there. And I would have to go back because, you know, if you look at some of the start dates, there's one on 12/20, there's one on January 3rd, and one on December 1st. These POs might be already in that account as an encumbrance for the year.
Okay.
So I have to check that.
So I'd appreciate, so if you could, on the next board meeting, just come back and tell us what the actual, the amounts would be between now and the end of the budget year.
If I could just add on to that, Mr. Calavano, wouldn't it also be true, though, that we have students who move out of district throughout the school year who are already built into the budget for tuition, so the mobility index does come into play with your numbers?
Correct.
Thank you.
Right, so therefore you have to move the out of encumbrances.
Right, well, what we would do is we would cancel the contracts or cancel the purchase orders and then reissue the new ones.
Understood, I'm just looking at the budget.
Any further comments or discussion from the board?
No.
Okay. I would like to thank,
Roll call?
Roll call, roll call.
Need to vote.
Roll call.
I was going to thank for the donations. Okay,
Oh, okay.
roll call.
Oh, you want to mention donations?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to thank ADP for the generous donation to West Orange High School for CPR kit. Also to Katie Zeke Short for the donation to West Orange High School LMC for the lock and charge charging cart for multiple devices valued at $1,700. Also to Picture Perfect Photography to Liberty Middle School, Liberty Middle School, the 8th grade end of year trip for $350. And also to David Mendy. I believe he donates this every year in memory of Francis Mendy to Washington School for the summer enrichment. Thank you to all our generous residents. This is really great. Roll call, Mr. Calavano?
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Ms. Mordecai?
Yes.
Oh, I still got the old list.
Yes, except for the abstention, vendor number 54, voucher 5477.
Mrs. Lab?
Yes, with the extension of my reimbursement.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
And who did I miss?
Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Robertson.
President Mordecai. No, I got President Mordecai.
You got me first. Mr. Robertson,
Mr.
you
Charles,
missed.
You got me. I will go first, but yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, May I have a motion for reports?
I'll move 1 and 2.
Thank you. A second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Mr. Calavano?
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mrs. Labb?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
President Mordecai?
Yes. Okay. Now, may I have a motion for miscellaneous? This is to approve the calendar for central office as well as the calendar for buildings and grounds.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion by the board? Mr. Calavano?
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mrs. Labb?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Vice President Schwartzbaum?
Yes.
And President Mordecai?
Yes. Okay, now it's time for report from my colleagues, board members, and myself. I don't have a report tonight, so if my colleagues have anything to report.
I got some.
Okay, wonderful.
February 8th, here in West Orange High School, Gina Keys, who's a West Orange resident, will be presenting to our social studies classes Chain the Musical. It's a play she had written regarding slavery. It's for Black History Month. In the evening that night, February 8th, it'll be open to the members of the community. I believe showtime's at 7 o'clock. And obviously, our administrative staff already reviewed the play and are supportive of the play. Saturday, February 4th, Hayden Moore Scholarship Fund bowling night at the bowling alley. So I know starting at 7 o'clock, if you want to come out and go bowling and support our scholarship, it'll be a great night to do that. And just a quick note, last week, was it last week, Jeff? 2 weeks ago, I can't even remember, the superintendent and I attended a Department of Education hearing for the regulatory and accountability regs. Unfortunately, the Department of Education, being the Department of Education, did not note to many associations that if you chose to speak that evening, you needed to pre-register. Nice little hat trick. Thank you, Department of Education. So we had a couple of superintendents in the room and some board members who were a little upset with the process, but by the time we got there, they already vented and we were allowed to speak. So they were required to have 3 hearings, 1 in the South, 1 Central, and 1 Northern New Jersey. And we'll see what happens, but I'm sure everything's pretty much a done deal as far as the accountability regs go. And that's all I have, Ms. Mordecai.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any announcements or reports?
No, I already talked about Lady Mountaineers, but it's good to mention them again. 13-0.
You know what, I have one. I almost forgot. But the Black History Month dinner will be here at the high school on February 3rd, Friday. I believe it's at 6:30. I'm not sure of the cost, but it's definitely February 3rd, Friday here. So please mark your calendars for that. Nothing than that. That's all we have.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the next board meeting will be held on February 13th at 8 o'clock, right here at the high school. I'd like a motion for the next meeting and also to move on to petitions and hearings of the citizens. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now it's time for petitions and hearings of the citizens. If anyone has any comments or questions, please come to the microphone. State your name and address. Okay. Ms. Gordon.
Hi, Rachel Gordon, 8 Maker Street.
Hello.
Just a few questions. And I also wanted to mention, I hope that progress is being made on the contract and it can be resolved soon so that our wonderful teachers can get back to the main focus of educating our students. Okay. 1, I commend the board and Superintendent Ruski for asking parents to join the K-5 Gifted and Talented, the MS Honors, the Middle School Honors and Middle School Elective Committees. It is my hope that they will implement procedures that will improve equal access for students through multiple entry points, and especially for the middle school honors, rather than relying so heavily on one test. So I just wanted to know, I know that parents were asked to submit applications because they were going to start the committees possibly sometime in January. So I just wanted to know what the process, where they are in the process, and when those committees will share out their findings and changes to the board and the general public. That's one. Two, I've heard from many parents that the middle school honors program has caused racial, ethnic, gender, and class segregation in classrooms and grades, especially at Edison. Apparently, it is common knowledge among students that they are being tiered, and many parents have reported their children feeling stigmatized as a result. And so I just wanted to know what was going to be done to change this for next year and what can be done this year to help this stigma. And three, since I mentioned testing, as Park is almost upon us for another year, what will be the official policy for refusal of students taking the test, and when will parents be informed of their procedure for refusing? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Alan Grossman, 4 North Coing Place. Did come to the attention, actually, of the Tap Into editor who asked me to address it, where Mr. Rusky sent out a note that for the inaugural, that the lower schools should not be watching the inaugural of Donald Trump. Just wanted to clarify the issue as how that came to be and whether the principals were part of that whole happening. And if you can shed any light on that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Anyone else?
Good evening, all. My name is Tony Fields, and I reside at 37 Brookside Road, West Orange, New Jersey. I guess I'll start at back in March of 2016, I took on an aggressive agenda to try to advocate or try to the best of my ability to help with our track and field program. The track and field program is a very vibrant program. It consists of approximately 90 kids, maybe 75, give or take. And we're trying to see if we can provide the most exposure that we possibly can to help promote the success of the kids' future. In June of 2016, I actually stood before the board, before most of you, and I shared my convictions as far as things that I saw that were wrong with our inability to try to get our kids to national invitationals. To date, we've had a series of meetings with the head coach department as far as the approach that I was told that I was supposed to pursue, because last year I was unsuccessful in trying to get us to nationals, is that I was supposed to pursue a path via the Booster Club funding. I'm now beginning to hit a wall. I'm becoming very frustrated. And the reason why I'm becoming very frustrated is because in my attempt to reach out to our Booster Club, which had its first meeting back in October of 2016 to current, we have yet to actually have a meeting to try to launch any kind of dialogue about what the Booster Club is, what its purpose is, and what we're trying to do to promote the success of our kids. In short, I really don't even know if we have a legitimate Booster Club based upon the lack of transparency by the individuals that we've reached out to on numerous occasions in a variety of emails. So my concerns and my frustration simply comes to one simple matter. I am coming to you, and I'm asking you for your help. We have a meeting, the first meeting that's supposed to be for the parents in the Booster Club board executives, that's supposed to be scheduled from, I believe, this Thursday. I'd like to invite all of you to come out to that meeting so that perhaps it's something that maybe I am not seeing that you may be able to envision. Because right now, there's no leadership across the entire arena of this process. And as a result, now we're right back where I started a year ago. A year ago, I tried to advocate for nationals. Nationals is probably going to come up around somewhere about the second week of June. We're just beginning to launch fundraising practices. I'm not even really sure what those are. I see a few emails here and there that have just started to flood through my email box in the last 2 to 3 days. Most organizations across the school have already started to launch their initiative as far as campaigning for fundraising back in August. So here's what I'd like to propose. I have a series of questions that I would like to provide to you that you perhaps could provide clarity on. Does the West Orange Board of Education recognize or acknowledge that any school district personnel or head coaches are authorized to serve on any booster club across the entire West Orange School District as an executive board member? Does the West Orange Board of Education recognize or acknowledge that any school district personnel or West Orange head coaches are authorized to exercise voting rights, decision-making practices on or for any booster club across the entire West Orange School District? For what purpose does the West Orange Board of Education recognize that a booster club should be allowed to exist, be created, and fundraise? Does the West Orange Board of Education maintain one standard model that all booster clubs in the West Orange School District are subject and must conform to? Does the West Orange School District Booster Club bylaws supersede the West Orange Board of Education's Booster Club policy? Does the West Orange Board of Education have an itemized list of all purchases in which Booster Club funding can be used? Does the West Orange Board of Education recognize any specific exceptions in which Booster Club funding can be used? Does the West Orange Board of Education have in place an oversight process that is responsible for monitoring all Booster Club organizations in its entirety? And lastly, does the West Orange Board of Education conform to any compliance regulations as it pertains to the maintenance of Booster Club organizations within the West Orange School District? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Susan Duarte, 14 Coney Place. I just have a question. The advertisements on the school buses that seem to be on all the school buses lately, does West Orange get any money from that, or is it the bus company that gets money? It just kind of looks cheesy.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Austin Dukes, and I live at 1 Clearview Terrace, and I'm going to talk about my concerns about at Edison Middle School. In December, I met with Mr. Fitzgerald and my mom to talk about the teams, which were some people on the, people were had conversations about how the teams were colored, like the organization of them were by the grades they get, saying that the great team was like the honor students and the people who get A's, and the green team was like a B average and the yellow team was a C average. And then that was in the beginning of the year. In the middle of the year, they were saying the gray team still was honors and A, and the yellow team was B, and the green team was C. So now some people keep on saying it, some people say it and some people disagree with it. And personally, I don't disagree with it. And yes, that's it.
Thank you, Austin.
I could almost say good morning, I think. Robin Iserlis, 22 Yale Terrace. I'll try to make this brief. About 2 weeks after the school year had begun, my 8th grade daughter came home from school and said, "Mom, you're not going to like this." She came home upset because her classes no longer looked like they used to during her time at Gregory Edison in 7th grade. When I asked her what she meant, she revealed that she noticed a few things about her honors versus non-honors classes. Mind you, she has a mother who's a sociologist, so many of our dinner conversations involve social issues, especially the reproduction of inequalities, injustice in our society, due in large part to institutionalized discrimination, whether based on the intersections of gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, class, disability, etc. We have a great many of these conversations. So as we continued to talk, she reported the following observations. In her honors math class, out of 15 students, 12 appeared to be white. In her honors ELA class, out of 22 students, all but 2 appear to be white. In contrast, in her non-honors classes, in her non-honors science class, out of 12 students, 9 appeared to be African American or Latino, and she added 8 are girls and 4 are boys. In her non-honors social studies class, out of 23 students, 20 appeared to be African American and Latino. Now, I grant that these are observations she made and that these identities were not verified, nor is this scientific. But I think it should give us all pause that these stark differences were so obvious and meaningful to a 13-year-old girl. If this was her perception, what is the perception of students like Austin who may be feeling left out? What she saw did not resonate with her experience before the current honors program was implemented. She knew already how wrong this seemed. What she saw certainly doesn't resonate with what we like to tell ourselves about our diverse school district. Soon after this, a friend and I were talking, and her son too had similar concerns. He noticed similar things in his classes, adding that in his honors science class, also in 8th grade, out of 19 students at the time, all but 6 appeared white, and there were only 5 girls. Unfortunately, this is consistent with the vast body of research on the culture and gender biases of standardized tests, which, as I'm sure you know, is now the primary requirement for entrance into the honors program, despite objections from several parents who served on the honors committee, myself included. Since those initial observations from 2 students, I've spoken to other parents who have the same concerns. We owe it to all of our students to have an honors program that reflects the diverse population it serves, and we owe it to every child that we work hard to eliminate the elitism that comes with an honors program and the corollary stigma associated with the non-honors track. So what we are asking for: we'd like the Board of Ed to investigate this more formally. We would like data on who is eligible for honors classes in the 2016-2017 academic year at the 3 middle schools, broken down by race, ethnicity, gender, those who are eligible for reduced or free lunch, and those identified as ELL. We'd like similar data for the non-honors courses in the 4 main subject areas. We would like to know how the current honors program will be evaluated as we move forward. A year and a half into the new program, some reflection on the strengths and weaknesses is appropriate. We would like a commitment from the Board of Ed that these concerns be taken seriously and action will be taken to ensure that such patterns do not continue. We request that a member of the Board of Ed sit on the honors committee that the superintendent is in the process of putting together. If the observations I've reported are indicative of an overall trend, this is not the school district I moved to. This is not the district that I want for the children in this community. And though I am just one person, I am not alone in thinking this way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Joseph Dukes, 1 Clearview Terrace. I'm here to find out the proper protocol in which I would like to file a formal complaint against a particular coach who I feel has been a bit abusive verbally to my daughter. And I would like to form a formal complaint, and I would like to know the steps in which I need to take to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the forum for me to make an announcement to the parents?
Yes, Ms. Brown, you can go ahead and make an announcement.
Okay. Good evening for the parents that are here.
Excuse me, you have to first identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Name and address, thank you.
Marissa Brown, 5 Linden Court, West Orange, New Jersey. But foremost, I would like to thank the board for being very supportive with the program that I'm implementing, which is the Financial Discipline Award and the Financial Readiness Academic Scholarship. I'm surprised, Mr. Anderson, that you're a 7th grader and 10th grader. Am I going to expect an application from them for the Financial Discipline Award? You have a 7th grader?
I have a 5th grader and a 10th grader.
The 10th grader and the 7th, oh, the 10th grader.
I'll make sure he gets the application now.
Thank you very much.
That's a great, I love the curriculum. I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry.
So the idea is, I'm not getting as much traction as I thought I would. So I basically need help in identifying the other committees that I could reach out to, because I believe that there are a lot of teenagers that could benefit from the program. My understanding, though, some of the feedback is the days that we have scheduled for the workshop, which is a Saturday, both workshops, all 4 of them, are for Saturdays. Now, I've spoken to my committee members, and we're being very flexible. We're willing to have one-on-ones with the teens and the parents, and we're going to do our best to accommodate them because we're raising money, and these funds are twofold. One, to assist the teenagers with their financial awareness skills, and the second one is 3 scholarships for teens that have demonstrated financial need, but also we spoke to language arts, right? We believe that language arts and math is the most fundamental, not that the others aren't, but we're looking at financial academics, financial literacy competence, 3.0 GPA or better, math, and language arts. For the FRASA scholarship, which is $2,500, $1,500, and $1,000. So I am just asking for help in reaching out to the proper committees. I actually went to the back and spoke to language arts to give me some lead, some direction, and she's going to follow up as well with, I believe she said, the dean. So I'm just here to announce to the parents that we do have 2 categories, the Financial Discipline Awards for ages 13 through their junior year, and the FRASA, the Financial Readiness Academic Scholarship. And we're raising money. We're out there raising funds to support the teens in 2 very fundamental areas and critical for those who have a financial need for college. So please give me some direction. And actually, Superintendent Rusky, I'd like to speak to you after the board meeting, and President Mordecai.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Brown, what are the dates of your workshop? You said on Saturdays, starting when?
February 11th.
Until?
And the 28th. And then after the workshop begins, we will be scheduling a checkpoint session with the teenagers.
Okay, thank you. So it runs from February 11th to February 28th every Saturday?
Just 2 Saturdays.
2 Saturdays,
Two
okay.
Saturdays, because I believe the second Saturday, I was told it was a holiday when I met with the middle school.
Okay.
Roseville.
Thank you.
And for any of the parents that are here, I have a few brochures and handouts.
Okay, thank you.
Marcia Dukes, One Clearview Terrace. I'm
evening.
actually here to, first of all, support my son. I have been working with him since September, basically when he came home, reporting his experiences. So I'm asking the board to listen to what is happening at Edison Middle School. Then I'm also coming as a parent. I have had a child that went through Edison Middle School 6 years ago. She's a senior now. And I can tell you, based on what I'm seeing, it's not the same level of work that she had 6 years ago. So something is drastically wrong. Different teams have different experiences. I, on the supporting my son on the green team, have hours of homework. Someone on the gray team does not have hours of homework. They have a lot of project-based. So there's something fundamentally going wrong, and it has to be addressed. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is piggybacking off of what I've experienced as a track parent of a daughter who has been committed to a sport for the last 3 years. There's been a tremendous amount of things that we know is happening within the track team that's not acceptable, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is the lack of transparency. And so one of the things I would like to ask the board is to request a financial audit from a third party in the West Orange Track Booster team, and I need to know what that process is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Zaretsky.
Let me start with Edison. I actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with Mr. Fitzgerald, finding out a few things, and some of these things that have been brought to my attention. Mr. and Mrs. Dukes was kind enough to meet last week and share their concerns. And I've had some conversation with some other parents about some of the things that were discussed tonight. So we're going to have I'm going to have a conversation. I have one set up tomorrow morning with Mr. Fitzgerald to find out why certain decisions were made and what we need to do to possibly make adjustments to those decisions. Mr. Dukes, as far as a complaint against a coach, the simplest way I can explain it is you're welcome to send that directly to me, and then that will kick in the process of what we have to do to investigate exactly what is going on.
Mr. Grossman's question about inauguration.
Yeah, I'm working my
you're
way
working
up.
through it.
There's more to
Okay,
go.
sorry. Thank
that's
you.
okay. So let's see here. Austin, thank you for coming up. Where's Austin? Austin, thank you for coming up to the microphone and sharing. And again, based on what you've said and some others here about Edison, I'm going to be having a conversation and looking into that. Mr. Orte, as far as the school buses,
We do receive some funding. I'm thinking that it's only a couple $100s, a couple times of the year. But we went into this agreement prior to my arrival. As soon as the agreement's up, which I believe is the end of the school year, we can have all the advertising taken off the buses.
Mr. Fields, as far as your conversation about the track and field and the nationals, obviously we spoke last year with your concern about getting kids to go to the nationals, and obviously I listened to you that I think that's very important to have kids exposed to different athletes around the country. Also to have that experience of competing at that level I think is very important. It's something that I have had a conversation with Mr. Bly and the track coaches to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. As indicated, there is a meeting set up on Thursday. I'm actually going to attend that meeting, and I'm actually going to have some conversation in that meeting after the actual regular agenda from the meeting is completed. There was some things I'll be doing and talking to the parents who attend that meeting to find out some other information so we can make the needed changes that need to happen or make the adjustments that need to happen to make sure that things like nationals are planned properly and that we are looking to make sure that they are funded properly. And as we have spoken, you know that we cannot use certain money for only a certain number of students, so we need to try to work around, and I know in the past there's been a club that was in the community specific to the track team, and it was separate from the booster club itself, and there was money raised from that can be used in different ways to support individual students. So when we're raising money collectively through the booster club, it has to be applied to the team and not individual students. But going outside of that and having something in the community itself is a conversation that I plan to have on Thursday and kind of to elicit some information from all those adults who are going to be in that meeting. I know that you've been frustrated, again, Mr. and Mrs. Dukes as well, in meetings we have, and as I indicated to you that I needed time to look into things, and not that I'm disagreeing with some of your concerns. It's something that we need time to look into to see how we can rectify those problems. Mr. Grossman, there was a discussion that was brought to my attention from the principals about concerns they had about the inauguration. The principals have brought that, and through discussions, we were considering what was best for our elementary students. Obviously, the entire time, the high school students were permitted to watch what they needed to watch, that they're age appropriate and it makes sense. And then in consultation with the board and talking to some other individuals, we felt we struck a balance by letting them watch the oath and the swearing in. So that's what we did at the lower grade levels, and again, obviously it was very different at the high school level. Ms. Gordon, we again you're correct about the committees, and those individuals are being notified. There's letters going out to those individuals to say thank you. You are in that group, and thank you for applying, and that we have another individuals for those committees. As far as the park, just not there yet. Obviously, it's coming very quickly, so we need to, we'll get some information for the next board meeting. And let me see if I missed anything else here. I think I covered everybody's comments.
Ms. Eisterlis had a question about the honors versus non-honors and the possible discrimination.
Yeah, well, again, that's part of the conversation that I'm going to have with Mr. Fitzgerald. It sounded like this happened to be targeted to the middle schools, and again, we'll have that discussion and look into it. And you know, we have a lot of different data as far as who's in, who's not in, and different things. So that'll all be looked into.
Okay, I thought she said 8th grade. I wrote 8th grade.
Okay. Again, it's the conversation with the honors committee. We'll have that conversation.
Okay. I would like to add, though, that I believe NPR does a study every year which breaks this down across the state. And I attended one of the NPR sessions in South Orange last year, which discussed this particular thing, and the various schools in Essex County who were listed on the report. I don't think the report for this year has come out as yet, and I believe it's the Students Parent Action Network who hosted the study in South Orange, and they discussed the NPR study.
Yeah, comment.
Okay, what else? Thank you, Austin, for coming. I'm always very pleased to see students come to the microphone and express concerns. I encourage you to keep up your advocacy. It's great to see you here. Track and field, it's one of my pet things. I don't want to say just being of Jamaican heritage is my pet thing, but I do like track and field. So I do feel your pain, and Mr. Rutsky is going to look into that on Thursday and keep us in the loop. Let me see. Okay, and that's all I have. Would you like to comment, Mr. Lapp?
Yeah, I just want, am I on? Hello? Just in a direct response to your question, board policy supersedes anything else in the district, so whatever you may have been told or not, it stops at the board policy. It starts at the board policy, so whatever information might have been brought to you that does not coincide with that, it is wholly inaccurate. Okay? Ms. Gordon, contract negotiations are continuing. Actually, Mr. Rutsky and I are meeting with Mr. Maniscalco, union president, on Wednesday. Okay.
I think Mr. Rutsky may want to speak to the policy we have on booster clubs for Mr. Fields' questions that may.
Or Mr. Calavano,
Yeah, it's there is a policy that is drawn, and it's so we do have the consistency and the expectations of all those that are on the executive board for each booster club. We have meetings. Mr. Calavano and I meet with all of the individuals from the boosters clubs, bring them in, make sure that they're doing the right things, make sure those reports are being filed properly, things of that nature, and that all goes into what's required within the booster club. But there's the district itself, when you are a 501c3, have a little different interaction than a traditional booster club without a 501c3. So our role, what we play in evaluating different things, are very different with a 501c3. Now, as you know, 501c3 has to have certain guidelines from the IRS that they have to follow, but we always have the ability to look at them. You, me, anybody else have the ability to look at the financials from each of the boosters clubs within the district.
Thank you, Mr. Rutsky. Okay.
I have comments, please.
Oh, sure. Mr.
Sure.
Robertson, go ahead.
Couple of things. First, in reference to honors, a gentleman, Bill Sullivan, stood right there April 25th last year, and he said one of the things that would end up happening with the current format for honors, with the emphasis on a test that presents information that kids had not previously learned, he said that you would end up with racial and economic divides, where those parents who were able to hire a tutor would hire tutors to tutor their kids to get further ahead so they could make sure to handle those materials. And he said that. And we should keep in mind that New York City public schools and a number of districts throughout New Jersey actually have rules or guidelines that accept, with the exception of gifted and talented testing, that kids can only be tested on materials and content that they were actually taught in the classroom. And one of the challenges that we've heard again and again with honors, we've heard children up here before, children as well as parents who articulated this, is that the material on honors tests, particularly on math honors, are often presents information that they had not actually been taught in a classroom. And it's structured more like it's made for gifted and talented, where you may have a gifted kid who is able to extrapolate what that answer is supposed to be, but we need to seriously take a second look at honors testing. That's number one. Number two, a lot of top performing districts throughout New Jersey and in other states, including look at Howard County Public Schools in Maryland, among the top performing schools in the country, do not use a test for honors. They have the kids based upon grades, and the kids with the top grades get into honors. And if they are able to maintain a B or better, they don't have to test to stay in honors. They're able to stay in honors. They're able to do it on the merits of their work. Now, I've heard many times about grade inflation. At this point, we have supervisors, and we have a math supervisor for elementary school. It's been in place, about 8 years now? We have supervisors who have now been in place 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And, grade inflation, I'm not sure, should still even exist at this point, given that so many guidelines are coming down from the supervisors expressed through the curriculum, and the teachers are doing the lesson plans. But so, just want to really have us, hope we take a hard look at, one, not using a test at all, or two, if we're going to use a test, to make sure that it's a fair test based upon things that kids have actually learned, maybe even provide a study guide for it. And three, consider that how we may be creating these racial and economic divides in our classrooms that shouldn't exist, and think more about rewarding kids on the basis of their good grades and the hard work that they put in from day to day. And if a board member were allowed to be on the honors committee, I would volunteer. I'd volunteer in a heartbeat. To Ms. Brown, the financial, is she still here? The financial curriculum and the program that you have is fantastic. I thought about it logistically, and there may be a couple of challenges that you're facing. One is when the program is introduced, coming in mid-year, a lot of times kids are signed up for so many other things at the beginning of the year. Some even sign up over the summer. So sometimes their Saturdays are booked. I'm even looking at what my kids have booked already on Saturdays. So that may present a challenge. But you only have 2 Saturdays, which should hopefully lessen the burden. I don't know if to get additional traction, and you may have already done this, in conjunction with Mr. Rutsky. I don't know if it's going to help to work in conjunction with the personal finance class, the accounting class, and some of the kids are already in tune to that. And I don't even know, I may even mention it to some of the Boy Scouts, because they actually have a personal finance badge where some of the curricula for that and all the requirements correspond with exactly what you're trying to teach kids. And that's a life skill.
Yeah. We've already put it through the personal finance. She's met with Nancy Mullen and the entire team to talk, promote, that kind of thing. We need to remember it's year one. It's hard. Year one is very hard.
Year one,
so
and
we need to implement, do what we can do to help assist,
yeah.
And then as it gains momentum, it'll build on itself.
Yes, she has also been attending PTA meetings and has also attended the Council of PTA meetings.
Excellent.
In addition to individual PTA meetings. So she's doing her homework.
I had no doubt about that. Due diligence. But good luck, and I'll help in any way I can. I want to thank Alston for speaking up. It takes courage, a lot of courage to speak up as a youth getting up there. And I want to thank you for having that courage and for articulating your point. And to the Dukes and Mr. Fields, I'm confident that the track issues will be resolved, and especially if we get everything to fall in line with the existing policy. And I'm glad Mr. Rutsky's going to be there at the meeting on Thursday. So I wish you luck with that, and we'll help in any way possible. Thank you.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Get home safe.